okay, we have to graph 7 sine x. So the amplitude is 7, and the period is 2 pi divided by the number before x, and since there's a 1 here, there's a 1 here, so this is just 2 pi. I'm going to make mine 4 increments wide, just because I don't want to squeeze it in. You could make it 1, you can make it 2, you can make it 3. As long as they're equal, the scaling is the same. So this is 2 pi, halfway is pi, that's pi over 2, and that's 3 pi over 2. Again, you could always just divide the number in front, so the 2 by 4, and that'll tell you how much each increment should be worth. And then we're going to go up to 7 and down to -7. And because it's positive sign, it's going to start at the midline, go up to the amplitude for the next increment, back to the midline, then down to the negative amplitude, and back to the midline. Okay, next. 1 cycle of cosine. So the amplitude is the absolute value of -5. And the period is 2 pi divided by the number before x, which is 2 pi, but it's negative and it's cosine, so it's going to start below its midline. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -5, and then I'll stick with the 4 for consistency's sake. And then this is 2 pi, pi, pi over 2, same as the last one because the period is the same as the last one. And this time I'm going to start down at the negative amplitude because it's negative cosine. Again, after every point you come back to the midline for these graphs, so that's a nice way to tell if you're doing it right or not, is if your points come back to the midline and then they alternate. It doesn't go up, down, up, or I'm sorry, it doesn't go up, midline, up. It goes up, midline, down, midline, up, midline, down, midline. Okay. Next one, 3 cosine 2x. So it goes, amplitude is the absolute value of 3, and the period is 2 pi divided by 2, which is just pi. So when I make these marks, the last one is just going to be pi, and then if I divide, this is 1 pi, and if I divide 1 by 4, I know that each mark should be 1/4. And then we have 3 and -3, and again it's cosine, so it's not going to start on its midline, it's going to start above or below, and since it's positive cosine, it's going to be starting above, making the positive smiley face because it's not sine, I mean sine. Okay. Next one, now we are going to notice that we have that vertical shift of up 2. So our amplitude is 5. Period is 2 pi divided by the number before x, which is just 1. So I'm going to go up to 5 and then down to -5 and then go out the 4. And this is 2 pi. And then label. So again, properly labeled graph for this class is going to have the 4 labels on the bottom and then the 2 on the y-axis. So I'm going to graph 5 sine x and then move every point up 2. So that means because it's positive, it's going to start on its midline and then go up, midline, down, midline. And then from there, I'm going to move every point up 2 to get my actual graph. Okay. And then onto the back side, we are graphing more of these. This one has a reflection. So we have up 5, And then the amplitude, remember amplitude is always a positive number, even if your A value is negative. And then the period, there's no number other than 1 in with the x, so it's just 2 pi. And just to mess with you a little bit, I'm going to change the increment to 3, just to show you it doesn't really matter as long as they're equal. And then we have 2 and negative 2. Because it's cosine, it's going to be a sad face, so it's not going to start on its midline and it's negative. So it's going to go like that. And then I'm going to move everything up 5. And then kind of keep it curved because we know these just keep making the same things. Okay, next one, number 6. For this one, you need the amplitude is 5. And then we are going down 3. And the period is 2 pi divided by 1/2. So again, that's copy dot flip. So that would be 4 pi. So whatever we make our increments, as long as they're equal, this time I'm doing all 5, it doesn't matter. So if this is 4, this is 3, this is 2, and this is 1. And then again, making sure you label both axes so that you know that what your scale is. So the first thing I'm going to do is graph positive sine. So that's going to go up. And then I'm going to move all those points down 3. And that's what my graph looks like. So now we're moving up to where we have to write the sine function. So it tells us that the amplitude is 5, so that's telling us that A equals 5. It's telling us that the midline is 3, so that's telling us that C is 3. And then it's telling us that it has a period of pi over 2. So the formula for the period is 2 pi over B. And it's telling us that this is pi over 4. Really what it is 1 over 4. So we need to figure out what do we have to divide 2 by to get 1/4. Or you can just set up the equation like this and then cross multiply and you get 1b equals 8. So you can see that b equals 8. And that makes sense because if I do 2 divided by 8, that reduces to 1/4. So then I get y equals 5 sine of 3x plus, of 8x plus 3. For the next one, it has a midline of 4. That tells me C is 4, amplitude of 2, and then a period of pi. So again, 2 pi over b, and it's telling us this is pi. So it's really 1 pi. So what does this have to be in order for me to get to 1? You can just cross multiply and you get b equals 2. So then your equation is y equals 2 cosine of 2x plus 4. Okay, moving on to one where you actually are given a graph. So when we're given a graph, we want to find that midline, and there's that midline right there. So that tells me right away that C equals 0. And then this also is going to help me find my amplitude. So I can see that my amplitude is 4. And then the only other thing I have left to do is find the period. So what you're going to do is kind of like ignore that side and start right at the y-axis and see how long it takes for this graph to go through the 5 key points, and that's at pi. Also notice that because it started on the midline and went up, that's a positive sine graph. So now I'm just going to take 2 pi divided by b, and that equals pi. So again, that's 1 pi. So I'm just going to set this up. 2 over b equals 1 over 1. What does b have to equal to get that to reduce to 1? Or you can just cross multiply and see that b equals 2. Okay, and then we can write our equation. Y equals 4 sine of 2x plus 0. And we don't really need to write that plus 0 because it's not necessary. So it's just 4 sine 2x. And then for our last problem, same thing. We are going to find the midline. And so the midline on this graph is up here at y equals 2. So that's telling me that c equals 2. And then the next thing I'm going to do is look at the distance from the midline, which is 2. So that's my amplitude. And then to find the period, like I said before, what you want to do is kind of like ignore this, start at the y-axis, and you can see you're already starting up above the midline, so that and not on the midline, so that's positive cosine. And then I'm going to do my 5 points. So it's up, midline, down, midline, up, and it took until 2 pi to get there. So if I do 2 pi over b equals my period for this graph, which is b, we can see that b needs to equal 1. And then we can write our equation, which is y equals 2 sine of 1x plus 2. And we don't need that 1 in front of the x, so it's invisible. So we just get y equals 2 sine of x plus 2. Also, make sure you practice writing tangent equation graphs as well, like the one that was on our first review worksheet.